Two girls talking. You know what that means. It's time to talk. What's going on in the world? How about your business? How about your life? Let's talk it out. Two girls talking.
Hey everybody, it's Anna.
And it's Ashley, and oh my gosh, we have such a treat for you today. I am so excited about our guest. She is such a dear friend of mine. Full disclaimer, also a former client turned dear friend. Her name is Julie Riesler. She's author of an amazing book. Go pick it up now, called Get a PhD in You. She is host of an incredible podcast called the USU Podcast. She has her master's degree in health and wellness coaching. She's on faculty at Georgetown. She's a heart facilitator with the heart. Okay, let me just say, I could go on for this entire podcast episode with all of Julie's credentials, but I'm not going to do that because I'll let her speak for herself. So Julie, thank you for joining us today.
Oh my gosh. I always say when my cheeks hurt so badly before we begin, we know we're in for a good time. So I'm so happy to be here. My cheeks are killing because I'm smiling. I'm so happy.
Oh my gosh. So Julie is an intuitive coach, but I feel like you're also, Julie, a life coach. You're like the coach of so many different dimensions. So why don't you take a moment to share with our audience about yourself, your work, your journey to how you got to where you are today as a very highly successful coach and author.
Thank you. Yeah. So first of all, so excited to be here. I love what you guys are doing. And let me just say that, I do believe that oftentimes our darkest parts of our life can be the most important lessons that can help us to spread more light. And that's really what happened for me. I struggled big time. I'm very open about this. I struggled with an addiction with food, with sugar. Some with alcohol, some with social media, some with all different things. For me, it was turning to food to handle emotions I didn't know how to process. Grew up with a very loving family, but my dad had PTSD and massive debt, financial issues, and bipolar and undiagnosed ADHD, and very loving, but very unstable. And I think for me, what I did is I turned to food to find stability. I did not realize at the time I'm an empath, which I have learned since. Being an empath, meaning highly sensitive to energy, to people, later realizing that's a gift. But at the time growing up, I was very sensitive to all of that. And so food stabilized that. And it wasn't until about almost 20 years ago, I had a moment where, I'll be really, say this quickly, there was a moment of just, do I end my life and drive myself into a tree, or do I drive myself to a support group? It was literally, that was the question I was asking myself, with a hand and a huge bag of M&Ms from Costco. And mind you, tie-dyed M&Ms, not like, so really like a moment, if you get a picture. And I just, I thankfully heard this inner voice that said, Julie, go to the meeting, your whole life will change. I was, Brene Brown teaches about shame. The shame was so big. It was bigger than my body. It was bigger than, I was like horrified to be in this group. This group and support system changed my life. And it started to have me look at what I was really eating over, which was a lack of self-connection to myself, self-love. And through that, I did a personal development program where I eventually, through the third one of the three main programs, I had a coach who changed my life. I had a lot unfold while I was excavating myself, realizing I was not in a marriage that I wanted to be in, good person, not the right fit. I came down with a massive autoimmune condition, and my thyroid stopped working, which I learned later, knew immediately was connected to not speaking my voice, whole other subject. And I just started to do this, peeling. And this coach, one powerful question that he asked me literally changed my life. And I realized if I could help people to understand that and help them to see the wisdom within them to change their life and live whatever their truth is, like that is sacred work. So I ended up getting a master's degree in coaching and not realizing how I would use it. And for me, it took a couple years, but I left my cushy day job. I was a single mom. I had 2 kids. Autoimmune condition, like a lot going on. And for me, coaching today, it's not just coaching. I actually came up with this term life designer because what I really think is that we get the chance to design it. We design our life how we want it to be. And so I add in, realized empath, highly sensitive, intuitive, and then I've done a lot of healing work and have studied with people like Teal Swan and have done a lot of healing energy work as well. So I bring that all in, and then of course, heart intelligence. So it is something I left my day job to do this work. I believe it is sacred work. I really do.
So what kind of meeting did you go to? You kept saying you're going to a meeting, and where? Like
it was
where did you
a
find
12-step meeting. It was a 12-step meeting. So if you've heard of like Alcoholics Anonymous, it's for overeating. They actually have them. Thank goodness they have them for like everything. And I highly recommend, if anyone's listening and they're like, oh, I struggle with money. There's a debtors, there's a alcohol, there's a drug, there's sex. I fit into the food one. And, it actually, what it did was over the time I started going regularly and worked, the steps, and I realized I just started to drop the shame. I started hearing so many people, so many stories, and that made the biggest difference. And that got me really comfortable sharing my story without shame, which is the biggest gift. Because when you lose shame, it was like the elephant that lived in me just, it just evaporated, and I could show up and say, yeah, I did eat out of my garbage can before. I know. I ate chocolate chip cookies on the toilet seat. I did do that. And that's without feeling like a horrible person.
Right. You talk about when I was reading up.
You talk about when I was reading up on you, and Ashley sent me info on you. You talk about how you realized you were a people pleaser, and that's Ashley and I are that way too. And you also talk about let me find the correct words here. How people can find their true selves. And so what is the secret to that?
The first thing is you've got to be awake and aware. So for a lot of life, I was just trying to not be in myself, right? I was trying to be who you wanted me to be. Like I was really good, and I felt people's energy, so I could like shift and chameleon. I mean, really, really good at it. But what happened was I stopped getting a sense of what my desires were, who I am, what makes me tick, what I'm into. And
that's exhausting.
It's very.
I imagine that's exhausting.
My thyroid breakdown was in direct proportion to, 15 years marriage and relationship with somebody where I was trying to be what he wanted. I was trying to be something I'm not. And I don't fault him. I created that with him, but it was exhausting. And so the number one, you always got, I think, starting with, and for me, it was actually the Artist's Way book. That was probably one of the most transformative books. Julia Cameron, who's actually she talks about being a recovering alcoholic. So it was geared towards that, but it's for anybody. And it has you look at, like, what do you even like? What do you desire? What makes me feel alive? And I started to realize, oh my God, I used to dance. I used to perform on camera. And I remembered my dream of pretending in the mirror that I was interviewing people with my toothbrush. And I was like, I want to do more of that, and so you've got to start excavating. But I think before that, getting still, getting present, meditating is a fancy word for just breathing with some stillness. So meditation's beautiful. I sometimes get intimidated. This is like 10 years of meditation. And I'm like, I'm just going to sit my butt down and just get quiet. Like that's what we're doing.
Yeah, sure.
So that you start there so you can start to go within. And then of course, tuning into your heart. And I could even talk more. It's very easy. It's natural. We're equipped. We actually have intelligence in our heart that is different than our brain. And I really do feel when you start to connect to that, intuition is connected to your heart, that you have, it's like opening a treasure box that you didn't even know was there. Honestly, that's what it was like for me.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because this is something you and I haven't really talked much about, which is like connecting to your heart. Like I know about connecting to your intuition, you're following your gut, but there's not a lot of emphasis I've heard on the heart. So tell us about that and how that works.
So it's so interesting because I know, where does intuition come from and how does it connect to your heart? And I will share, I very gratefully, although I don't feel it's a coincidence, had the opportunity to facilitate a global coherence conference with HeartMath a year ago in Tulum. Had no idea what would be happening now? Spent some time with them. And recently I was talking to Dr. Roland McCready. He's the head scientist for HeartMath. They've been studying this for 30 years. And he actually has taught about intuition. And what he was saying to me, because he's going to be leading a master class for a program I'm doing, is that intuition, actually, the information comes in first through our heart. We have 40,000 or more sensory, intelligent neurons in our heart that are different than our gut and our brain. It's actually, what's so cool is your brain is a polar organ. So when, it's designed to like waver between questions, the analysis paralysis, which I get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your heart doesn't do that. It is literally an intelligent organ that when you put your hand on your heart and you learn to tune in, that's what gives you wisdom that to me is from your higher self, the higher heart, whatever you want to call it. Intuition, your gut feeling, all of that, like scientifically, information comes in first through your heart, then goes to your gut, and your intuition stems from there and then goes to your brain. And to get coherence, what we want to do is connect to our heart and then connect it with our brain and back to our heart. It's really fascinating.
Is it a simple act of even just like placing your hand on your heart? So like, how do you activate that?
Right.
Yeah. It's a great question. So you can do the basic one is called the heart lock-in, and that's HeartMath technology. I mean, you basically put your hand on your heart. You just start to breathe. You don't even have to close your eyes. Start to breathe slowly. You're going to put your attention to your heart. Imagine breathing in and out of your heart. And then what you want to do is just start to not think about it, but feel a sense of gratitude or appreciation or care. Find something like your kids, the barn you were just in, dancing, whatever, and you feel that gratitude. And when you start to feel that, I actually have a device I wear every day when I do this. It tracks the coherence of your heart. We have a varied heart rate variability, and it tracks the coherence. There's a certain so you can be in coherence or out. Most people are out of coherence. It's so cool. So when you do this long enough, you can see, I'll be honest, I love my mom. She's high anxiety. When my mom calls me on the phone, when I have my little thingy on, I used to get out of coherence. I could see it go into red.
Wow.
And I was like, I got to breathe. Yeah, it's great for us. I'm not even that logical, but I like to know science and I like to understand how things work. And I'm like, holy mackerel, my mom brought me out of coherence. All right, that's on me. I got to
right.
So
let me ask you, when you have your
clients, first of all, when your clients come to you, what do they say? How would one think, okay, I'm so out of sorts? What would make you an intuition coach differ from, say, even another kind of life coach? And when they come to you, what do they say? Help me do this, or help me not do this?
This is probably not surprising. Overachieving, high achiever, overachieving, often exhausted mentally, women, some men too, that I say big-hearted, high overachievers who are looking to get a little out of their mind and more into a sense of, the words I usually use is that feeling of having your light turned back on, feeling like there's more meaning and purpose in your life. It might be around, food and that whole world, but oftentimes it's I just don't really feel like I'm my me. I don't really feel like I have a nice house, I have 2 kids, things are okay, they're fine, but they don't feel like things are wonderful, or that light that used to be on, or that I think could be on is lit up. So it's interesting. I get a lot of kind of this logical left brain, intellectual, a lot of women like that, and those that are more in the right brain and the healing aspect too. But yeah, because what I do, every session, everybody's different. So I use my intuition. I'm trained as a coach. I teach it. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time. Sometimes it's really looking at beliefs and stories. Sometimes, though, it's actually going in and finding a part of you that had trauma and healing that aspect. And that's, you've got to be, not everyone's open to that. Most that come to me are open to just healing and moving forward. Getting unstuck. It's a big one.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
So, because in essence, you're helping people find and come back home to their true selves.
Yeah.
Or at least, so like right now we're all at home during this time of quarantine. It's a time of stillness. And that's scary for a lot of people because we're all used to go, 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 go. So I feel like even for me, I've been doing a lot of exploration, yoga every day. I'm doing dance. I am definitely using this time to come more into my true self by exploring more movement. How do you think we can use this time of a slower pace of life, and especially a time when it's such high anxiety too in our global world? Yeah. How can we use this time to explore who we really truly are and get back home?
Such a great question. I have like 1,000 answers, but I'm going to narrow it down to a few that I think are doable and that and truthfully, I would say to everyone listening, like, first of all, tune into yourself. And, it's a good question to journal about, like, what makes me feel calm and peaceful and ease. I will say a natural one is nature. The first and foremost, nature for a lot of reasons. We're all made of energy. The energy, the vibration, whatever you want to call it, is nature holds a very high, like incredibly healing energy force. I mean, there's what's called forest bathing.
And I kind of feel like right now more
and more people are returning to nature. I mean, like Ash posted something on Facebook that my husband actually saw about, and this is not about anything against our gym owners, but it was like, we don't really need gyms because we're out doing yoga, or we're out, walking, or we're running outside. We can't go to gyms. Ashley's right. We are returning more to nature to get our movement and our exercise.
I think that is brilliant. And I think the other piece is like the mental well-being. It's hard to walk outside around beautiful trees and not feel a shift after that walk.
Yes,
I've been,
yes, absolutely.
Area of study, and now a whole area that people are getting certified called forest bathing, where you go into forest bathing. Yeah.
Really?
What is that? I've never heard of it.
Really?
Going into like a forest or where there's a lot of trees, and you actually can have healing in your body, in your well-being. The other one that we know for sure that works too is grounding. You put your feet on the grass and you literally pull up minerals and good, energy from the earth. Grounding, but forest bathing is a thing. There's actual science behind that. And to me, it's always been like, I feel better, right? So I think because what I noticed during all of this time when you go outside, it's like Mother Nature did not stop producing gorgeous, flowers. And
absolutely. I think it's greener.
Absolutely. I think it's greener around here now. I think the colors are brighter.
But it's such a good message. Like, it's really important to be able to thrive within yourself. It doesn't mean we're human. I mean, there's been a lot of emotion, especially the last few weeks. I've had a lot of grief. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of, all of the emotions. And of course, Ashley, you're dancing through them. I mean, that's so powerful. I think movement, I think being in nature, I think any kind of movement, find music. This is what I've been doing. I have a playlist of like angry, like crying grief, and then like spiritual. I mean, I'm so out there, but I'm like, I don't care. Right. So like some days I'm playing this music and some days it's that. And today I was like, I'm playing Journey, Don't Stop Believing. Like I'm just whatever. And I'll just dance however I want or move. So, moving with music. And I think always reflection, intuitive, journaling. I know, or heart speak is another way that I call it, like hand on your heart. Think of something you're upset about or worried about. Write it down first. That's your, like in your brain. Go into your heart and then write about it, and you will get a different answer, which is similar to intuitive journaling. It's any form of, introspection where you're just writing. And I would definitely handwrite it versus typing. It accesses a different part of you, creativity.
Right.
That's such great advice. I'm also feel like I want to keep putting my in this interview.
I know, it's so powerful. I know.
I just like don't want it to leave. Okay, so I had another question. Just again, it kind of goes back to what we're facing right now with the pandemic and everything else. It's a time when we're not physically connecting with people, but you also preach the importance of oneness. So we're talking about a lot about like we find our true selves. We're also not really connecting with people, but you preach oneness. So tell our audience, what does that mean? What does oneness mean? And then how can we express our oneness to the world when we're at a physical distance from everyone right now?
Oh, I love that. I love that question. And I actually it's funny, this morning I had a thought about that. So I'll share. First of all, I think on the quantum kind of metaphysical level, and some might be with me with this, some might not. I mean, I really, truly, everything I've read and feel in my heart and believe is we literally are all of the same infinite love stuff, whatever you call that. We're individuated expressions. We're individual, we each have our own unique fingerprint. Yet, if you really start getting into it, The Divine Matrix is a great book on this. It explains, again, scientifically how we are in this web of love, of infinite love, or light. And so you have that. To me, I feel that. I talked earlier about being sensitive. I can feel that. But so how do you show it? How do you be that? I'll tell you, one way you can do that is when you're walking in nature, when you're out walking, literally smile at every human being you see. Wave and smile. I started doing that. I felt a little weird at first because sometimes people want their own space. I'm like, no, that's my expression of oneness, is to acknowledge in their eyes. So that's one little thing. Anytime you go to a store, you get in your car, anytime you see a human being, just smile. Smile. You can smile with your eyes. It's called smize.
Well, what's so weird is that.
Yeah. Well, what's so weird is that I'm from the Midwest, and people do that all the time. It wasn't until I moved to the East Coast that I realized that I recognized, I guess, that people don't do that. We're very, in the East Coast, we're very, almost kind of myopic. We're into our own thing. I don't think we ignore the people. We're just really into what we're doing. Yet when I come from in the Midwest, everybody smiles at everybody looks at everybody, just walks down the street, whatever. And you're right though, Julie, at least in my neighborhood, when I walk around, everybody's like, smiling and waving at everybody when we pass them on the street walking. Even, 6 feet apart, and we, avoid each other on the streets. We, hey, how you doing? Good morning. It's always morning for me. It's too hot in the afternoon for me to get out. I stay inside in the afternoon.
One little thing, but I would just, anytime you're out and about, and then I would apply that. Okay, how can I send a smile or my heart? I call it a heart flare. How can I give a heart flare? So social media. I just was posting. God, there's just so much I'm learning about the whole idea of being, an ally and understanding more about the race issues in this country and things I hadn't even thought about because I've been so in my other stuff. And I just, I think being, to me, it comes back to being loving, being open-minded, being kind, being supportive, whatever that looks like for each of us, is another way to be into oneness.
So you just launched
a new life coaching program. So tell us about that a little bit.
Yay, I'm so excited. That's awesome. I am so excited about this. I have been thinking about this for a long time. The quick story, because I think it's kind of funny / interesting. When I did my master's degree, I was coaching on the side. I was working in my full-time, corporate job, HR. And I started to realize it was fine, but not the best fit for me. I was like, I'm going to start my own business. So I left with a couple coaching clients. I mean, I kind of left. I don't recommend doing what I did, but nonetheless, thank goodness it worked. Worked with a coach and came up with this idea of being a life designer. I was like, I love that name. And literally the first thing I paid for was this trademark. And I didn't know why, but my intuition was like, get that trademarked. I was like, what is a trademark? I had one friend from college who was a trademark lawyer. And I called him. I'm like, Andy, can you help me? And he's like, absolutely can. So he's in Virginia. He's awesome. He did the trademark and I paid, that was my first payment. Now, 6 years later, I've been teaching it, I've been coaching, and it just occurred to me in this time, actually, I was like, wait a minute. This is something that can really, really help those that feel called to serve and that want to, not just be better listeners, but help others to unpack and really tap into their potential and to design their best life. Like I just see that as really, really crucial work. So I kind of was asking my heart, what else can I do right now? And I thought, you know what? I could absolutely create a program that helps people to be a life designer, to be a coach, but infusing in intuition and, being a healing presence and heart intelligence and some of the things that I perhaps wouldn't be adding in if I were teaching elsewhere. And so it's really to train, I think of it as being a light worker, being a coach. And it's a 12-week program. You get 20 hours of coaching outside of the meeting every single week. There's a final, and it's exciting because this is like my heart. I've been teaching it for a long time, and we just started the first cohort, and it's just amazing people, and all who want to use it in different ways. I mean, coaching. Yeah. There's the competencies. There is a framework, but there's also a lot of kind of learning how to hold space for people. And I think that's so needed now.
Right, exactly.
I can't think of anyone better than you to teach that to people. Like, it's so amazing. And I'm so excited. Like, I'm like, sign me up because I want to go through it personally, but it's just also for me, like this whole time of pandemic has really been like a lot of personal growth and
definitely.
like in a good way, very stressful changes, anxiety inducing, and definitely with my husband not here a lot and having 3 kids at home, but it's also been a time of like really going back to my true self. And I feel like Julie's the right next step for this. So I hope others will find more information and get inspired by you. So tell us, where can we get more? Julie, tell our audience.
You're so awesome. Well, the best what I'm up to and how hopefully I can serve and help you is at my website, which is julieriesler.com. And that's REI, like the store, SLER. It's spelled differently than it sounds. And if you're interested in the coaching, you actually just add a little / certification. It's a very non-fancy page, but it does give you the information. And you can also find me, I have about 20 meditations. I have a course for those who've struggled with overeating. I have a lot of my podcast talks up on Insight Timer. It's a really wonderful mindfulness app. And they're free. So if you just look up my name on Insight Timer, there's a lot of meditations and great resources there.
I'm going to do that. I'm totally going to do that.
Oh my goodness, I'm going to do that. I'm totally going to do that.
Knows this. I do a lot of
because I'm a big Ashley knows this. I do a lot of meditation, and I'm a big fan of Insight Timer. So looking you up right now. Look at that.
It kind of is a game changer. It's actually
I know our audience is going to be walking away being like, wow, because that's how I feel every time I talk to you. So thank you so much for joining us on Two Girls Talking. You're the best.
Yeah, that's a really great time, and there's so much to be learned.
That's a really great time, and there's so much to be learned out there, right now. Now is a really good time to do that. So
heart to you.
Okay, I'm holding my heart too. Awesome, everybody.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
All right, we'll talk to you guys next.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Again, it's Two Girls Talking. Ashley and Anna. We'll see you soon.
Bye.